Hi, everyone. Welcome once again. So, today we're going to be breaking down a few of the commandments, either how we can break them, really delve deeper into them. But before, as I said, we are going to be going back to basics. And I think one of the most important parts of the basics is identifying a difference between what a mortal sin is and what a venial sin is. So for a mortal sin, for a sin to be mortal, it has three different things that are necessary for a sin to be a mortal sin. So it has to be of grave matter. What that means is it basically has to go against one of the 10 commandments, something to be extremely grave. So, for example, murder. If you want to kill someone and you follow through with it, it has to have first, it has to be against the 10 commandments, which obviously thou shalt not kill is one of them. The second part is you have to know it's of grave matter. So, in other words, you understand that thou shalt not kill literally means you shall not kill somebody. The third one, sorry, is you have to do it anyway, freely. This is the choice part of it. And so if it doesn't have those three things, then it's not considered a mortal sin. What that means, the third part, what that means is you have to do it freely. So if somebody comes up to you and, you know, holds a gun or you are holding a gun and they are pressuring you to kill somebody and either they're going to kill you or whatever that third part is, then it's not a mortal sin, because even though it is of grave matter, even though you know it's of grave matter, you're not doing it freely, you're being forced into it. I hope that really helps you understand. So if it is missing any of those things, it is of grave matter. You know it is, but you don't do it freely, then it becomes almost like a venial sin. But we also have to be very careful with venial sins, because the more they add up, the more our relationship with God is ruptured, and the easier it's going to be to fall into sin. So venial sins are necessarily ones that you have to go to confession for. Those, if you go to Mass, at the beginning of Mass, we have the I confess or something like it, and then you have the general absolution that kind of forgives those venial sins. Now, it's important for you to try to remember those, because Father always says, let us remember in all those ways that we've failed in our relationship with God, or bring to mind your sins, any number of ways that you can phrase that. And then we think about those little venial sins. Now, that doesn't forgive any of the mortal sins. Those you have to actually go through one of the priests, and you actually have to go to confession. And in a few days, we're going to talk about that exactly, where it comes from and all that. But today I wanted to, before we got to that point, I wanted to bring to mind, like yesterday, the 10 Commandments. So today we're going to delve deeper into them, because I feel it's very important to really understand profoundly what they are, how we can mess up with them. So the first one, again, is thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your being, and you have no other gods aside from the one true God. So it sounds pretty easy. It sounds like, well, I don't really adore any other God. I don't remember, putting anything in front of me and adoring it or something. The problem is sometimes we do, without realizing, have other gods. If we put priority over anything else other than God, if you wake up in the morning and you take out your phone and you begin to look at it without even thanking God for allowing you to wake up that morning, without thanking God for that new life that you have, etc., you're already in dangerous territory where you're adoring something. If you're going to go to bed and you do the same thing, if you're sitting on your phone and the last thing on your mind is not God, then that is something that you're adoring. If throughout your day you're more worried about playing video games, doing this, that, or the other, and not focused on God, then that means that we are having other idols. For a lot of people, unfortunately, money becomes an idol. You either want to work hard and to buy all the nice things that could become our idol. So those are all ways that we can not love God first. The second one is you shouldn't take the Lord's name in vain. So that one sounds pretty easy. Well, I don't I don't swear to God, but throughout the day, if you just even say, "Oh my God," or if you say, you know, just any vulgar trans or variants of Jesus, you're basically using the Lord's name in vain. So we could be failing without even realizing it. If you're playing a video game, if you're playing a sport and you get hurt or you killed on the video game, and first thing that comes out of your mind is an expletive, and sometimes it's even oriented or geared towards God, then you're already using the Lord's name in vain. Or even if you say, I swear to God that this is true, or any of those things, we already examined the whole, my word has to be enough. If you have to swear, then that might be a problem. And then the third one, again, if you have the little towers, the bell towers, then that is keep holy the Lord's day, or in other words, go to Mass on Sunday and other days of obligation. Now, it sounds pretty easy. And right now, during the pandemic, there's been a dispensation. But in reality, if you look at it, if you're not going to Mass, but you are going to restaurants and you are going, you're traveling on an airplane, you're going out to concerts, you're doing all these other things, then that means that you're failing here, because the dispensation is for those who are either at risk, at high risk, live with somebody who has at high risk, and or has a crippling fear and would be impeded in the relationship with God because the fear about going to Mass is there. So obviously, if you're already going to restaurants, if you're already even going to grocery stores, the risk for COVID is very similar. And so if you're already doing all those other things, but you don't consider your faith to be important, then you're failing. You're almost, you know, in a state of mortal sin, because you're choosing to do something and you're using the excuse to not come to Mass, to not thank the Lord for the week, the month, the year, whatever that you've had. And so it's very important to point that out, because I do find people who are afraid to come to Mass, but it they're already gathering with other people, they're doing all these other activities that would be a higher risk. And so I mean, that excuse seems to me, at least, and maybe to God, if you search your heart of hearts, to be an invalid concern. So for now, we'll leave it here. I know there's a lot to digest and process, but I think it's very important to point these things out, because if we don't have as a foundation the 10 commandments, then we won't know what to confess. And then if we don't know what to confess, then our relationship with God seems to be um, a little heavier. I'll just put it that way. And again, I think it's very important to point out that when we sin, it's not that God turns his back on us, is that we decide freely to turn our backs on God. Plain and simply, God is always there. He's always ready to forgive, but it has to be us, the ones that turn right back around. And we do that through the sacrament of confession or coming to Mass in the general absolution for those venial sins. So again, see y'all in the Eucharist.